You've heard it, right? That sound. Click. People call it the click. It made Miriam Makeba famous. It's in the Black Panther movie. But what if I told you that sound isn't just a cool accent? It's actually the result of an ancient social avoidance law designed to stop married women from saying their father-in-law's name. And here's a question that will break your brain. What was the first language of the South African oppressor, Afrikaans, originally written in? If you guessed the Roman alphabet, the ABCs, you are wrong. It was written in Arabic. Today we are diving into a country that has not one, not two, but 12 official languages. We are talking about a language invented underground by miners because they were forbidden to speak. A gangster language from the 1950s that defined cool. And the heartbreaking reason why a simple change in a school curriculum set the whole country on fire in 1976. This is the origin of the tongue. Okay, let's start with the click. When the world hears South African languages like isiXhosa or isiZulu, they freak out over the clicks, the Q, the X, the C. But here's the twist. The Zulu and Xhosa people didn't invent them. They actually borrowed them. See, the original owners of the clicks are the San and Khoi people, the first people we met in part 1. Their languages are packed with clicks. When the Bantu-speaking ancestors of the Zulu and Xhosa people migrated south about 2,000 years ago, they didn't have clicks. They met the San, they traded, they intermarried, and then something fascinating happened. They started incorporating these alien sounds into their own language. But why? Was it just because it sounded cool? No. The leading theory is a custom called Hodnipa. This is a traditional culture of respect, specifically for married women. Here is the rule. A woman cannot say the name of her father-in-law, or even words that sound like his name. It's a total verbal taboo. So imagine your father-in-law's name is Manzi, meaning water. You can't say Manzi. You can't ask for water. You have to invent a new word. And to make sure this new word sounded totally different from the forbidden name, the Xhosa and Zulu women reached for those foreign, crisp, percussive sounds they heard from their San neighbors, the clicks. They used them to disguise words out of respect. So that famous click sound isn't just phonetics, it's the sound of an ancient social contract. Now, fast forward a few centuries. The Europeans arrive, and they bring English, Dutch, German, but South Africa is a pressure cooker. You have people from everywhere engaging in trade, war, and yes, slavery. And this pressure cooker cooked up something completely new. We need to talk about Afrikaans. If you know anything about history, you know Afrikaans as the language of the Apartheid government, the language of the Boer. But the origin story of Afrikaans is completely different from its reputation. It wasn't invented by white men in suits. It was cooked up in the kitchens of the Cape by slaves. In the 1600s and 1700s, the Dutch settlers brought in slaves from Indonesia, Malaysia, and Madagascar. These people spoke Malay, Portuguese Creole, and various African languages. They had to talk to their Dutch masters, but the Dutch grammar was too complicated, so they stripped it down. They dropped the verb conjugations. They simplified the gender. They mixed in Malay words like bay, very, and pisang, banana. They created a pidgin Dutch, a kitchen Dutch, and this Creole became Afrikaans. But here is the dopamine hit I promised you. The very first time this new kitchen Dutch was ever written down, it wasn't written by a Dutchman. It was written by Muslim scholars in the Cape. And because they were Muslim, they used the alphabet they knew, Arabic. It's called Arabic Afrikaans. We have manuscripts from the 1860s, religious texts written in phonetically spelled Afrikaans using Arabic script. One of the first books was the Utenensetting Devi. The irony, the language that became the symbol of white Christian nationalism, started its literary life in a Muslim school, written in the script of the Quran. History is wild, right? We are a new channel, and this is part 2 of a 10-part mega series. If you love history that's way more complex and interesting than what you learned in school, do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe button. It tells us you want more deep dives just like this. And frankly, it helps us keep the lights on so we can make them. It's the late 1800s. Gold is discovered in Johannesburg. Suddenly, you have hundreds of thousands of men rushing to the mines. They come from everywhere: Malawi, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, rural Zululand, England, Australia. Nobody speaks the same language. But deep underground, in the dark, dangerous tunnels, you have to communicate. If you shout, "Watch out for that rock," and the other guy doesn't understand you, he dies. So, the mines invented their own language. It's called Fanagalo. Fanagalo is a pidgin. It's a stripped-down mix of Zulu, about 70%, English, and Afrikaans. The name literally means, "do it like this." It has a very small vocabulary, mostly commands. Take this, go there, pick up. It is brutal, direct, and hierarchical. Here is the crazy stat. Fanagalo is one of the only languages in the world with 0 native speakers. Nobody speaks Fanagalo at home to their kids. You only speak it at work. It was the language of command. But for the miners, it became a badge of survival, a way to navigate the belly of the beast. But while the miners were speaking Fanagalo underground, something much cooler was happening on the streets of Johannesburg. In the 1940s and 50s, in the legendary place called Sophiatown, a new subculture was born: the Tsotsis. Tsotsi means gangster or thug. And these guys were stylish. They wore American jazz-style suits, listened to swing music, and they needed a code, a language the police couldn't understand. So they invented Tsotsital. Tsotsital wasn't just a language, it was a vibe. It took Afrikaans grammar, mixed it with Swana, Zulu, and American slang, and turned it into pure style. It was the language of the streets, the language of defiance. If you spoke High English, you were a snob. If you spoke rural Zulu, you're a mogu, a country bumpkin. But if you spoke Tsotsital, you were a clever. This language evolved. Today, in the townships of Soweto, it's called Iscamtho. It's still alive. It's the language of Kwaito music. It's the language of the youth. It's proof that you can oppress a people, but you can't stop them from talking. But in 1976, the government tried to do exactly that. This is the dark turn. The Apartheid government realized that language is power, and in 1974 they passed the Afrikaans Medium Decree. It sounds boring, right? It wasn't. It was a declaration of war on black school children. The decree said that black students, who already had poor resources, had to be taught math and social studies in Afrikaans. Imagine trying to learn calculus in a language you barely speak, which also happens to be the language of the police who harass you. It was impossible. It was designed to make them fail. Desmond Tutu famously said Afrikaans was the language of the oppressor. The students had had enough. On June 16, 1976, thousands of students in Soweto walked out of their classrooms. They marched peacefully. They held signs that said, "To hell with Afrikaans." The police opened fire. The image of Hector Peterson, a dying schoolboy being carried away, went around the world. The Soweto uprising didn't start over land, it didn't start over money, it started over language. It started because a government tried to force a tongue into the mouths of children who refused to swallow it. That uprising was the beginning of the end for apartheid. So, the smoke clears. Apartheid falls in 1994, and South Africa has to decide what is our official language. The easy answer? Make it English, neutral ground. But South Africa doesn't do easy. They decided to make a statement. They looked at the constitution and said, let's have 11. Zulu, Xhosa, Afrikaans, English, Sepedi, Setswana, Sesotho, Sitsonga, Swati, Shivendeth, Ndebele. It was a massive logistical nightmare and a beautiful symbolic gesture. It said, everyone belongs here. But wait, we aren't done, because in July 2023, President Cyril Ramaphosa signed a bill adding a 12th official language, South African Sign Language, SASL. This made South Africa the 4th country in Africa to recognize sign language officially. So, with 12 languages mixing together, you get some very weird English. If you go to South Africa, you're going to need a translator for the English. Let me teach you the most important lesson. Time. In South Africa, time is flexible. If a South African says, I'll do it now, that means eventually. Maybe in an hour, maybe never. If they say, I'll do it just now, that means later. But if they say, I'll do it now, that means soon. Now is the only one you can trust. Sort of. And then there are the words they stole, like robot. And South Africa, you don't stop at a traffic light, you stop at a robot. Why? Because the original traffic signals in the 1930s were basically police robots, mechanical arms that waved at you. The name stuck. Or takkies. That's sneakers. It comes from the tacky rubber soles. Or gocha. That means bug or monster. It comes directly from the Khoi word hohon. It's one of the oldest surviving words in the country. And my personal favorite, indaba. This is a Zulu word for a gathering or a serious discussion. But today, everyone uses it. Businessmen have an indaba. Politicians have an indaba. It's a word that crossed the divide. So here is the lesson. In South Africa, language isn't just a way to communicate. It's a geological record. You can hear the ancient sand hunters in the click. You can hear the Malay slaves in the Afrikaans grammar. You can hear the gold miners in the commands of Famagalo. And you can hear the gangsters of Sophiatown in the Totsital slang. Language here is a weapon. It was used to divide people in 1976. But today, with 12 official languages, it is being used to stitch them back together. It's messy, it's loud, and it requires a lot of translation. But as they say in South Africa, cannot go. It is time. So, we've covered the people, the language, but you can't understand a culture until you taste it. And South African food? It's a crime scene of flavor. Next time, in part 3, we're eating. We're going to find out how a curry hidden inside a loaf of bread became a symbol of apartheid resistance, and why the national sausage has actual laws about how much meat must be inside it. You do not want to miss the origin of the food. If you learned something new today, maybe about the Arabic Afrikaans or the robot, hit that like button. It really helps the algorithm find us. And tell me in the comments, what is the weirdest slang word in your language? I want to hear them all. I'll see you now, or maybe just now. Cheers.